So today I'm going to be talking about color perception and color models. First, actually, I'm going to show demo HCL color model. So, okay, we're on. In CSS, there are really only two color models: RGB, it stands for red, green, blue, and HCL, it stands for hue, saturation, and lightness. Say, okay. So this is RGB. This is RGB as well, and this is RGB. Okay, this is HCL. The first value is for hue. So, okay. So I can change the hue and preserve saturation and lightness. It goes up to 360 degrees, and then it starts over, I believe. Second value is saturation. So the 0 is gray. Third one is a bit tricky. It goes from black to 50% to maximum saturation, and then it goes to white. So, for example, no matter what hue it is, it's always white with a 100% lightness. So, HCL, I would say, is more human-friendly than RGB because you can control the hue separately from saturation and lightness. And say if you want to make the color slightly lighter, I could just do that by changing only one number. So if I wanted to make a red color slightly brighter, well, actually, let's say not red, but red is too easy. Let's say yellow. If I wanted to make it slightly brighter using RGB, I would have to change at least two numbers. Well, to make it less brighter, more dim. And sometimes it's not even clear which numbers do I need to change to make the color lighter or darker. So HCL helps with that. So you can see that this is a bit easier to read than this, and this is slightly easier than this one. But why is that? A few more examples. So yeah, why is this exactly? The colors are just, say, they're just, for computer, they're just numbers. And let's say we have a website with some photos, and we want to show captions on top of photos with text. And if the main color of the photo is dark, we want to show white text, and vice versa. If the photo is very light, we want to show dark text. And let's say we already have the main color of the photo somewhere from the back end. How do we do that? How do we decide which color to paint the text? So can we use HCL for that? Maybe. So these two colors are about the same perceived lightness. They look about the same. So they have the same saturation and the same lightness parameters, but the hue is different. This, however, is these two colors, however, have the same saturation and lightness too, but the blue one looks way darker than the yellow. So if I change the color to be text color to be black, it's pretty hard to read the text with a blue background, even though the hue, even though the saturation and lightness are the same. So actually, HCL is not very good a color model to solve the problem of calculating the contrast. So if you open Photoshop, I discovered that a few years ago, and I understood how it works only just maybe a couple months ago. So if you open a Photoshop and convert this image to black and white, this would happen. And how does Photoshop know that the blue is actually pretty dark and yellow here is fairly light? Okay. So if you convert that image on top to grayscale in Photoshop, it would look like the gradient at the bottom. And as you can see, it's not just one color. It goes from white to dark gray. So for yellow, it's fairly light, and the darkest is blue. So HCL is not really a good solution to that, because we can't calculate the contrast between colors by just looking at saturation and lightness. And there's a better formula, and that formula is based on luminance. Luminance. And it looks a bit strange if you ask me. Where did these numbers come from? So it turns out green light contributes the most to the intensity perceived by humans, and the blue one contributes the least. So this is the diagram. So there are two types of photoreceptors in our eyes, and they're called rods and cones. So the rods are, on this diagram, the rods are the dashed line, and the cones are the colored lines. So rods can function in a less intense light, like night at night, and they don't, however, distinguish color, and cones are less sensitive to light, but there are three types of them, and they're on a diagram. They're marked as S, M, and L, and they can perceive different wavelength of light. Some colorblind people have, well, colorblind people have less than 3 types of cones, and there are some people that have more than 3 types of cones, and apparently they can distinguish more shades of colors, I guess. So the formula for contrast ratio is just this, and the L1 and L2 is just 2 luminescence values. So if I were to calculate the contrast between 2 colors, I would calculate the luminescence first, and then just use this basic formula. Okay. I'm gonna show one tool to help to calculate the contrast. Okay. So here it is. This is the contrast ratio, and I can change the color, so this is not invisible. And as you can see, it's not enough to see the difference between saturation and lightness, because for these 2 colors it's the same, pretty much. But the hue contributes to the contrast a lot too. So the bigger the number is, the better. And turns out there's a color model that has luminescence as part of a color model. It's in one of its dimension. So in HCL it's hue, saturation, lightness, but in HCL it's hue, chroma, luminescence. That's actually not the best example. Okay. And yeah, this is actually quite useful to pick colors. It's not available in CSS. It was at some point in SVG spec, but it was never implemented, and as far as I know, the authors of the spec decided that it should go to CSS, and it was never implemented in CSS. So, but it's available in libraries. It's available in a Chroma.js JavaScript library, which allows you to define colors like this and manipulate colors using, say, mix colors, interpolate colors using different color scheme. For example, if you want to mix 2 colors, there are actually many ways of doing that. And if you interpolate using RGB, you'll get one value. If you interpolate using HCL, you'll get another value. And well, I didn't talk about lab color, but we'll get another value. And LCH is actually another name for HCL. It's LCH is just luminescence, chroma, hue, I think. So anyway, and also produces different color, and that's very useful for. Yeah, this is another tool to show the difference between different interpolations between colors. So it's very useful for data visualizations. So if you want to represent sequential data on a map, for example, you probably we want to use LCH, which is the same as I said, HCL, confusingly. Because so okay, what's the point of HCL anyway? HCL color scheme keeps the has a component, has a luminescence component in it, and in a HCL rainbow, if I convert it to black and white, it looks like this. If I convert HCL rainbow, it just looks gray because the luminescence is consistent across the spectrum. So Mike Bostock, he does data visualizations at New York Times. He has a bunch of demos of HCL Color. So this is his color picker. This is interpolation where on the left side, so this is a gradient, and on the left side the luminescence value is higher than on the right side. So, and it goes through different hues, and as you can see, changes the color, but the luminescence stays the same. So the right side always looks darker. Anyway, that's what I tried to explain. If you want to calculate the contrast between two colors, you probably want to use this formula, and HCL color scheme is a very good color scheme to manipulate colors in a more human-friendly way. That's all.